Hey guys, Bart from TST Industries here. Welcome to TST Garage. Today in the shop, I have a 2017 and up Yamaha YZF R6. In the two previous segments of this video series, we showed you how to install our standard and adjustable Elite 1 fender eliminator systems, but we didn't show you how to install signaling components along with that system. So, promised you we would make these videos, and today we will shoot two new segments, one going over our standard OEM signal relocating bracket that places your OEM signals in this area, and also an installation video showing you how to install our pod signal kits along with our fender eliminator components. So, this segment will be focusing only on the installation that uses the relocation bracket, and we will show you all the steps. It's a very simple installation. Let's get started. We're going to start this process by deconstructing this OEM fender, precisely just removing the OEM signals out of it, making sure that all of our connections and wires come out intact. So to do that, I will use a small flathead screwdriver and pry away all the tabs holding this plastic piece in place. As that comes out, we'll just unroute the wires. There's a cable management clip here. You can open. Now the wires are completely free, and we could focus on removing the signals. And the signals use a jamming component that has interference geometry with the rubber boot. Rubber boot is part of the actual signal. This is sort of awkward to show you guys as I perform it, so when I remove it completely off the bike, I'll do it one more time so that you could understand and get the gist of how it's done. Once you get this interference fastener up the line, you can focus on removing the signal out of the holding geometry here. Now, in the rear portion of the signal here, if we slip this screwdriver underneath this flange, there is a little window that allows you to put a tool in and pry up. All this stuff just comes out, and looks like this. So, this is the little window that I was talking about. This is where I insert my screwdriver and pry up, and all of this geometry here is made of rubber, so it deflects and enables me to actually take it out of its keeping geometry. This is that jam fastener I was talking about. When in place, this tab goes through this little window and jams it in place, prevents it from coming out. So to unlock this, you essentially need to get the rubber component around the plastic jamming component, and it comes out. Pretty simple. Let's repeat the procedure on the other side. All right, we rescued this guy. See you later. All right, now let's break down some of this wiring so that we could actually fit it through our components on the bike. There are these two plastic tubes that hang out over the wiring sheath. They are unnecessary for our installation. We're gonna remove the tape that holds them on and then remove the tubes. They are split, so it's pretty easy. Okay, now approximately 3 to 4 inches up the line from the signal on each side, there is a thickened section within this wire. What we're going to do now is slice open this shielding to get access to there. During this process, we want to make sure that we don't harm any of the wires, so you have to be careful when you do that. And at this stage, you're left with exposed wires, an exposed crimped connection here. I'll show you guys what that looks like on the inside underneath this heat shrink. The factory decided to use a crimp connection between the two wires. It's not soldered, it's just crimped together, and then they put this shielding around it. So because we have to fit these wires through our undertail closeout, and we can't really do that with these huge plugs on there, we will cut them here, fit them through the closeout, and then resplice them and make use of the included heat shrink tubing to insulate our connections. I'm going to cut these wires, there are 2 in each assembly, right down the middle of that crimp and insulator. And then I'm going to have to get rid of this component. Then we will want to expose about 1/2 inch of wire on each side. All right, and the next step here, we will be installing these portions onto our bracket that will then consequently get sandwiched in between our license plate bracket and our undertail closeout on the bike. So, white is the right side, left is black. So we just need to make sure that we reconnect the appropriate wire colors here so that we have color-coded plugs. This bracket is going to be mounted this way when you're looking at the rear of the bike. So if you get it looking like this, turn it 90 this way. This is your left side of the bike. So we want black on the left side. Black plug corresponds to the brown wire inside. We are going to insert this signal into this side. And this is basically the reverse of the removal process that I showed you on the OEM setup. All right, so we have this assembly ready to go onto the bike, but I do believe that it will be a lot easier to show you guys what needs to happen next on the table. So I'm going to remove some of the components from the bike to show you how to fit everything into those components and then back onto the bike. If you need any help in the sequence of installation of these components, please see the first 2 videos in our series, whether you have the adjustable or the standard version of the fender eliminator. It's essentially the same thing. You are sandwiching this component in between the license plate bracket and the closeout. So I'll quickly deconstruct this, bring it to the table, and we'll move on. Okay, so this is our typical setup that you'll find with one of our fender eliminators. It has a closeout and the license plate bracket. This particular setup has one of our Stealth LED license plate lights already installed. So as you can see, the wiring is being routed through that little center hole into the bike. This component will sandwich in between these two and fasten into the bike. So now we need to route the wires that we've left open through that same wiring hole so that we can reattach the plug components and then get it installed on the bike, plugged in and ready to go. So what's the easiest way to do this? I only know of one way to do this. So you just route these wires in. The shielding is a little bit large, so it's gonna have to be just folded so that it fits into the hole. And it's gonna be a tight fit between all these components, but we can get it done. No sweat. Now, in case you're wondering why we provided such a small hole on this closeout, I do have a good explanation. We did want to make sure that all the components are the most aesthetically pleasing in all forms. So I believe that the least amount of people will be doing this install. Most guys do an integrated taillight, other pod signals like our TST Industries pod signals, or some other lighting device. So this installation will likely not be the most prevalent means of installation. So this was at the bottom of our priority to make easy. That's why I'm showing you this process broken down into little steps, because this one will likely need the most help from our video. Now I have all of this stuff routed inside. I just need to make sure that it's sitting center. So I just need to move it around, move the wires, and then we'll start splicing the other sections onto them. All right, I think I'm good here. Just gonna clean up the stripped wires on all of these connections. Twist them around so they're nice and clean. And then we are going to go one by one. Let's start with the white plug containing green and black wire. I'm going to go up the line a little bit here, strip off a little bit more of this outer shielding. That will enable me to use the heat shrink tubing that we've provided you guys. Get it down over those wires far enough away that we have enough exposure to have dexterity here. Now I'm going to twist these together. If you are the type of guy that has to have absolute peace of mind over a connection beyond just twisting them together, please go ahead and solder these connections. Now, as you can see from a previous shot in this video, the manufacturer of this system actually chose to just dry crimp them together. So that is a similar connection to what we're providing here. I think that's good enough, but if you don't, please go ahead and solder them. Once you get them tightly wound together, you can slip the insulating sleeves that we provided that will shrink when heat is applied over the connection. And you can use a lighter and pass it over the surface of this heat shrink tubing. If you have access to a heat gun, this is a preferred method. I like to go a step beyond this and get some insulating electrical tape over this whole connection, mostly because I like the wires to stay together. And also, this provides a little bit of strain relief to the wire couple. You start tugging on this stuff, it'll have better resilience. So it's just a good idea to get this tape on here, nice and tight and neat. And just like that, one side is done. I'm just going to repeat this without the commentary on the other side. All right, so during my removal of all these components from the bike, I extracted the original screws that we had for this entire system. We will not be reusing these. Our relocation bracket comes with 2 alternate screws. They are a little bit longer, and they basically just replaced these. All the other components from the assembly are still reused. So I'm going to use the washers that came off those other screws through the bottom of the license plate bracket, through the relocation bracket, through the closeout, and penetrate all the way to the top. That step was not very effective. Here we go. All right. Now we are ready to bring this setup to the bike and mount it in the same way that we mounted the whole fender eliminator system in our first videos. So I'm going to break here for a second, jump onto the bike, and we'll show you the rest. Okay, so let's get our wiring through the subframe. And then we will align these screws protruding from the closeout with the rearmost holes in the subframe that are exposed in the void left behind by the fender. Once they penetrate to the top, I'm going to reuse that dog bone looking double washer. And that is an OEM component from this Yamaha. I'm going to reuse the 2 locking nuts that we took off in the disassembly of these parts prior to installing the signals on them. It's a tight fit in there, unless you have really small hands. So I'm going to use some help. I'll get these 2 connections snug, center all my equipment, make sure everything's aesthetically pleasing and also symmetrical around the center plane of the bike. And then I'm going to go to full tightness and we'll be done. All right. So let's plug all this equipment in. White to white, black to black. Plug in the license plate light. And now let's test this bad boy. Okay, we have our left signal going already, as you can see. Right signal, license plate light is illuminated. And now we have a nice minimal look while preserving all of the functions that are necessary on the rear of a motorcycle. The rest of the steps from this point forward will be the reassembly of all the components we've taken off to this point. For that, I will just point you to one of our fender eliminator videos. Those show you all those steps in detail. All right, I'm done here. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, this was just a chunk in a series, so I encourage you guys to see the rest of the videos, especially if you're seeing this video first without taking a look at our installation of the fender eliminator components. If you need more information, want to see some pictures, a lot of detailed specs of all these components, those can be accessed via our website, tstindustries.com. And that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. Ride safe.